let them talk if they want to. Talk don't bother me. I want the whole wide world to know that I love you so.
Hey, welcome to Let 'Em Talk. I'm Paul DiRienzo, and
Hi, everybody.
hi, and we're our guest tonight is Preston Peet, author, raconteur, expert on the issue that we're going to be discussing tonight, which is behind us on the screen. This is the iboga plant. It's the source of ibogaine, and we're going to be talking about iboga and ibogaine and addiction and how those relate to this potential cure that comes from the rainforests of Central Africa, and which people are using now all over the United States and all over the world in order to try and cure their addiction. But despite that, I mean, despite the great promise that's held by this drug, when we'll be discussing it, I've written about it, so I'm biased. I admit that right from the beginning. I co-authored a book called The Ibogaine Story, the report from the Staten Island Project.
It's quite comprehensive.
It's a comprehensive book, and I totally am sold on the fact that ibogaine works. So right there, I'm telling you, give you the journalistic.
Interrupter of addiction.
Exactly. And we're going to be talking about that with Preston and with others. Let me give you a little background. Let me ask Preston really to give us the background.
Thanks for being here, Preston.
Well, absolutely. Again, my apologies for coming in at the very last second.
Oh, no, that's all right. And
New York City travels a little hectic, as we know.
Well, we're flying now, and tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you come to write about ibogaine, and why do you know so much about ibogaine?
I was introduced to opiates as a user after a car accident when I was 16 years old, back in 1981. I was in the hospital as a painkiller. I was in. I never made it out of progressive intensive care for 4 months. I was in a hospital bed, unable to move.
So very serious accident.
Very serious accident. They were giving me morphine intravenously in the IV drip every 2 hours for 3 months of that time, and then intramuscular in the hip for the next month.
Wow.
And then they released me from the hospital. Said, go home. Didn't tell me that I was going to be cold turkey kicking or anything of the sort, and didn't know that that's what I'd gone through until I moved to Holland in 1990, 1991, and very quickly caught a habit using heroin, because I was constantly seeking that relief that I had learned was available to me through opiates as a teenager. So I was lying in bed one night in Rotterdam, Holland, having decided with my girlfriend that we were going to not use that night, and going through the twitches and the kicks and the withdrawal symptoms, and not understanding why it was such a familiar feeling, and the light bulb went off. I said, this is withdrawals. I've been through this. I know what this is, and I know how to fix it.
And how much later in your life was that?
This is a good 8 years after the car accident. And I had been on again, off again, experimenting with other drugs.
Now, you're a writer. I mean, I want to tell a little bit about what gives you the, why we have you here, besides the fact that you've been an addict and you've done ibogaine and you're a person who's had the experience. You're also a writer.
Right. I've edited and contributed to Under the Influence.
We can show that here. We'll hang it up.
The Disinformation Guide to Drugs, which is all about drugs and drug policy and how ruinous prohibition is.
I like to walk forward, like give the listeners, viewers,
that one that you're holding is Underground, the Disinformation Guide to Ancient Civilizations, Astonishing Archaeology and Hidden History. Right. This one is more the pertinent book for tonight's topic.
So you must be a researcher too.
I am a researcher and a writer. After going back and forth with street drugs for years, I got on a methadone program, and here in New York City. And when I decided to get off of that, I had become acquainted with Dana Beal through writing with High Times and covering the marijuana marches, and he was insistent you should try Ibogaine. And believe it or not, back in the mid-'80s, I had been in my first 28-day program for a cocaine use problem, And an elderly black man said one night in one of the group talks, "I've heard of this African root that supposedly cures cocaine and heroin addiction." And the counselors were like, "Get out of here, you're nuts, you're crazy, there's no such thing, that's a myth, it's impossible."
Now, isn't it the case that most rehab programs now use a 12-step program?
Oh yeah,
It's pretty much the most accepted
that
way
is
in the
most,
country today.
yeah, it's mandated religious drug treatment.
And Ibogaine is something that you take and then you're relieved of your addiction?
You can be. Some people can be. After that initial mention of Ibogaine, I'd been having it in the back of my mind. So when Dana Beal began trying to convince me to take Ibogaine, this was in the year 2000, I was still against the idea, in that my way of looking at it was, no, I have to suffer. I have to go through the suffering of kicking for it to actually sink in and be valid.
Is a moral crisis,
right.
a moral problem,
and therefore
not a physical injury. Now, could you
I
imagine?
think you should explain.
But
too.
it was also the
I want
fact
to say
that
this one thing, because I was thinking about this today for so long. It's like, imagine if someone had cancer and people said to the person with cancer, "It's your own fault. You have
Right.
cancer because you are not a moral person."
Right.
Therefore, what responsibility does society have to help you?
Right.
We should just lock you up.
You should just lock you
I'd
up,
like to
or
mention one
make you
thing.
suffer through your pain and agony.
That one of the interesting things about Ibogaine is that you are relieved of any withdrawal symptoms. Is that correct?
To a major degree, there are variances between each person. I mean, every person is going to experience it slightly different. I didn't do it when I kicked methadone. I did methadone on my own by decreasing it and getting off it on my own, but then very quickly realized that I was a chronic pain patient from this car accident, that the methadone had been taking care of my pain very well for years. And suddenly I didn't have that anymore, so I began using painkillers. Dilaudid.
By the way, our phone number is 212-757-1538.
Call us up.
Call us up. We
us
want
up.
to take your calls. 212-757-1538.
I began using
Ask Preston Peet a question. We want to have
excuse
your experience. I'm sorry. We want to have your experiences as well. If you've had problems with addiction, and we're talking about all kinds of
Well,
addictions.
the calls are coming
And the
in
calls are
already.
coming in. We'll give it a shot.
Mhm.
Right, and we'll let the callers give it a
right
shot.
away.
You're on.
Hello?
Hey, how you doing?
Good, how
Welcome to
are
Let 'em
you?
Talk.
I got a question for the guy in the middle.
Yes, sir.
How bad is he dying to turn around and smoke those plants behind him?
This plant, I couldn't smoke this plant. And to be perfectly honest with you, it would take a lot to get me to take the plunge of taking Ibogaine again. I've taken Ibogaine many times, but each time is
It's actually
it's an
ingested,
effort.
is that
Yeah,
right?
I
Tell
have
folks
to
what
eat
it is. What is
Well,
Ibogaine?
Most times I've taken it, I've eaten it. It's an African root. There's various forms. The most way that I've done it is the actual chemical, the Ibogaine, that's extracted from the plant, just like cocaine is from the coca plant.
Ibogaine hydrochloride.
Hydrochloride, thank you. I went to Amsterdam at the beginning of this year, which was the last time I did Ibogaine 6 months ago, and have been good for the last 6 months now. It seems to have finally taken for me. I took the extract, which is the whole plant extract, which has all of the chemicals from the plant in it. It's a much milder form of the plant,
We have
but you
another
also
call?
eat it. Okay.
Finish. Let's go to the
The
next
calls
call.
are rolling in.
Look, they were rolling, and I guess we lost. Oh, here it is. And you're on. Go ahead.
Good evening.
Yellow. Are you on?
Hello?
Yes, hi.
Your question.
Hello?
Yes.
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, yes. I'm interested in how did he get cured?
Well, I took Ibogaine. A common fallacy is that Ibogaine is a cure, and Ibogaine is not a cure. Ibogaine is a tool. The first few times I took Ibogaine, I did not have any aftercare plan. I was the idea that I could take Ibogaine and magically I would be fixed and okay, and I could just get on with my life. But that's not true. Just like with any drug rehabilitation effort or kicking a drug habit, there has to be an alternative afterwards, or I find myself right back in the same straits that I was to begin with.
So
In my case, I have chronic pain. I have chronic pain issues. So it took a number of times taking Ibogaine in different settings before it finally clicked for me. And this is common. Some people can take it one time and that's it. They're great. They're good to go. Other people, it may take 5, 6, even I've heard as many as 8, 9, 10 times. But it seems to... Yes, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Ma'am? Go ahead. All right, we're going to go to the next call. We have another call on the line.
Thank you for calling.
Yes, our number is 212-757-1538. And you're on.
Hello?
Hey.
Hi.
Yeah, I was wondering if you've ever injected heroin into your penis.
No, I haven't.
Some might have tried, but not this time.
I have actually seen people have other people injected into their groins. I haven't personally ever gotten to that point in search of a vein because many heroin injectors run out of veins. But
so
no.
it's another reason why another good reason why.
I suspect you're being a smartass, but no, I haven't.
Yeah, we allow our listeners to be smart.
Absolutely.
All right, 727. 212-757-1538, and you're on. Go ahead. You're on.
Hello,
Welcome to Let Them Talk. I'm Paul, Joni, Preston Peet's our guest. Your question?
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
I'm a senior. Is this Let Them Talk?
Yes, it is.
Hi.
Thank you for calling.
I've lived in New York City all my life.
Yeah. Can you speak up a little louder, please?
I've lived in New York City all my life. I'm a senior. And I've lived alone for the past 55 years. I'm not a racist. Some of my best friends are colored. I get along with a black lady who lives next door to me, and I get along with her very well. And we have been friends for 15 years. However, hello?
Yes, we can hear you. Continue.
I want to say that I feel the Puerto Ricans are simply destroying the city and have no respect.
I don't think that's true.
Wait, what's destroying the city?
The Puerto Ricans.
Puerto Ricans?
The Puerto Ricans.
Are you're kidding me, right? Yeah. That's totally off topic. It has nothing to do with what I'm here to discuss. So you have a great evening.
We'll try again. We have a call, 212-757-1538. We're talking about addiction and how to get off of addiction. But, it brings up a lot of emotional subjects in people. I mean, addiction is something that is very difficult for people to see as a medical illness.
Right.
They just have to see it constantly.
Even myself, I have a problem seeing it necessarily as a quote-unquote illness. I don't see it as a
weakness.
Yeah, see, I don't even see it as a moral. It's such a convoluted, complicated issue, addiction and drug use and drug abuse, and is all use abuse, and the prejudice and chemical bigotry. One drug is okay, but another drug is not okay. If the pharmaceutical company packages it and markets it, then that's fine. But if it's put in a little glassine bag and sold on the street corner, then that's not a good drug. When they're the exact same drugs in many instances. There's so much bigotry and misunderstanding and misinformation.
It's commercialized, and that has a lot to do with it. I think it's still interesting to talk about Ibogaine. Let's go back. It's from Africa, and a lot of people don't understand that. And considering that addiction has always been sort of one of those things, even though it affects all groups of society, all ethnic, racial, economic factions, there's nobody who isn't touched by addiction in one way or other. It has been one of the things used to slag the certain...
And the war itself.
Yeah, and the war, to go after people of color in particular as the enemies of this. Yet, so it's very interesting when you say that from Africa itself comes the cure.
Yes.
I mean, we've always had success in discussing that aspect of Ibogaine.
Well, that's why people were bringing it here to New York City. When I came across Ibogaine within the United States, it was an underground treatment group of people who were blatantly breaking federal narcotics laws to bring. Initially, the idea was they were going to bring it to Harlem to introduce it to the people in Harlem whose ancestors were brought over here as slaves who had been re-enslaved in one form or another, often by drug addiction. Here's this cure from where many of their ancestors originated, and now we can bring this cure to them here in America and introduce it to them and let them spread it among their fellow addicts and fellow users and friends and neighbors and so on and so forth. It didn't work quite the way they had planned it initially, but I'm pretty sure, and don't quote me on the exact figures here, but I'm pretty sure they've treated a good 100 people at least here in New York City in the last 2 or 3 years now, in an underground treatment setting. It's
Now,
much
Preston,
cheaper. Yes, go ahead.
Can you tell us what it's like to take Ibogaine? Like, what is the process like once you've ingested it?
I
Do you
took
go to
a
sleep, or-
test dose. I did not sleep. I took a test dose, which is a small dose, to make sure that I was not going to have an allergic reaction to it. I waited 40 minutes or so. They decided he's handling this okay. They gave me the full dose. I believe I took 23 milligrams per kilogram body weight, which worked out to over a gram of Ibogaine hydrochloride. That's a lot, and especially for my body weight. I was 120 something pounds at that time. I'm still a very thin man, but I was really emaciated. It hit me fairly quickly. Within the hour, I had a very loud, keening, high-pitched sound. Lots of liquid metal in the air. Very, very classic entheogenic, hallucinogen effects to begin with. But once the actual full-on experience began, I began to suffer ataxia, where I couldn't move. I was nailed to the bed. If I tried to move my head left or right, the entire room would wait a minute before shifting with my vision. I had to take an anti-nausea medication, like an air sickness medication, to keep from throwing up the Ibogaine, to make sure I got it all in my system.
How long did the trip last?
A long time. I thought it was even an entire day and night, longer than it was, it felt to me. And I've heard this from other people who've experienced Ibogaine, that it feels even longer. That they're convinced.
Was it multiple days?
Yes.
I took it on, I believe it was Sunday afternoon, and I was not able to climb out of bed until Tuesday morning.
Right.
Oh, so it goes on for days.
Yeah, well, I had to have someone sit next to me to help pee in a bucket. I was not eating or drinking. Well, I drank a lot of fluids during that time, a lot of water. A lot of people describe it as being on a holodeck, where the visions I'm not seeing the visions, I'm in the visions. I'm experiencing them. They're around me. And it's a whole series, it's a whole progression of visions, where it begins with very abstract forms and geometric shapes and patterns and melting and stuff. Then it became very scary, introspective, a lot of frightening experiences, being in a battle in Iraq, watching civilizations overcome in space and destroy themselves over and over, many times, over and over again. But all I had to do was open my eyes, and that vision would be ended. And there was never a time when I felt like, oh no, I'm lost. I'm never going to make it back. I've gone crazy.
Did you feel that the visions were part of the cleansing effect that helped you end the addiction?
Initially, I did, but each time I took Ibogaine and had serious visions, I wound up within months back into my abuse patterns. This last time I took Ibogaine, I didn't get many visions. I had more of a dreaming effect because I had traveled overnight to get to Amsterdam. I actually traveled 3,000 miles to go to Amsterdam to help detox from drugs, which a lot of people told me was the silliest thing they'd ever heard. You're going to Amsterdam.
Well, let's compare for a second. What's a 30-day detox program cost?
Oh, well,
in the United States?
I don't know. A lot. It's a lot of money.
Tens of thousands of dollars.
If you're going, if you want to go to a residential treatment program that you see advertised on television, say. It's going to be thousands upon thousands of dollars. And it's going to involve a lot of other drugs.
How
quite
much
often.
does one dose of Ibogaine cost?
That depends on where you go and from who you get it. If you get it straight from the source, it can, if you were buying it straight from the people who are making it, the companies like in Switzerland, it's a couple $100 for a gram, you know. But for a treatment, it can cost up to $10,000. Right. If you want to go to St. Kitts and Dr. Mash, I believe that their clinic charges $10,000. I paid 1,500 euros a week for 2.5 weeks. My last time in Amsterdam, my first time taking Ibogaine, I only paid, I probably shouldn't say this on the air, but it's been a few years now, so I hope they will forgive me. They only charged me, I think, $290 for my initial treatment here in New York, and that did stick for 7 or 8 months.
That's amazing, considering how few, you know, when you, if you know something about drug treatment, that how few programs work at all.
This was 3 days of being under the effects of Ibogaine, and then 7 or 8 months of using my prescription responsibly as prescribed, effectively, getting the effects I needed from it.
Now, have you spoken
totally
to your
reset.
doctors about this?
Yes,
Because you're under
as a matter of fact, I have. Yes, I have.
And what is their reaction to that?
Some interest, some curiosity, but because it's illegal in the United States, he's unable to even advise his patients that this option is out there.
Want to try a call?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Why not?
You're on.
Hello.
Come on, show that shit up.
He's
You're on.
persistent.
We'll give you a try.
Hello.
Yes, hello.
I have a friend that he's addicted, not heavy drugs like you're addicted to, buddy.
Was addicted.
Was. Well, like you say. But he's addicted to sugar, food.
That's a very good
And he
point.
had that same condition you had, where he was laid up in bed and he couldn't move out of bed. He went on binge. Moon pies, snacks, you name it.
Right.
We didn't know what to do. Do you have any advice, my friend?
To be honest, I don't know if Ibogaine, which is what we're discussing tonight, would be something that would help him. But people do take Ibogaine in Africa for many reasons, not just for drug addiction. And as a matter of fact, in Africa, it's, I think, very rare that it's used for a drug addiction cure. It's more of a rite of passage or an initiation, or if a woman is having trouble conceiving, if a man is having trouble with some issue in his life, it's more of an exploratory thing where they are contacting their ancestors.
Let's try another.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. You're on.
Hey, how you doing? I'm sorry, let me load down the...
Turn your TV down.
Okay, thank you. I want to ask this gentleman a question. You said you're taking some kind of medicine, Ibogaine?
Yes, Ibogaine.
Ibogaine, right?
Yeah.
What will happen if you stop taking it? Would you go back to addiction again?
It's not a maintenance drug. It's not like methadone. I don't have to take it all the time. I only took it one time and then was off of my drug abuse patterns for months and months and months. Personally, it took me a few times of taking Ibogaine. I've taken Ibogaine 5 or 6 times now, either in full treatment doses or as boosters, to just get a taste of the realignment again, to re-cleanse my system, which works in small amounts.
So it's not like methadone.
It's not like methadone, where I have to go to a clinic every day, take it, and then if I stop, I go through withdrawals.
We're talking a couple times a year.
If that.
Some people.
1 minute.
Yeah.
1 minute.
Okay. Want to sum up? I just give you that warning so you can sum up.
Some people, it only takes one time. Other people, like myself, it took multiple times of taking Ibogaine, but it is not a maintenance drug, nor is it a cure. It's a tool. It's an interrupter. It will completely realign the body. I was taking 30 to 40 Dilaudid a day at one point in the worst part of my addiction. I took Ibogaine, and 3 days later, 1 Dilaudid pill taken orally affected me, treated my pain, and worked.
All right, Preston Peet. I'm Paul DiRienzo.
Thank you so much for
Preston
coming.
Peet.
Preston Peet, our guest.
Thank
and
you
we'll
for
be back
having me.
next Tuesday. We have a taped show next Tuesday. We're going to be talking about the kings and queens of New York. And
Drag
we hope to see
Summit.
you, the Drag Summit.
See you next
Okay,
week.
see you then. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much. Definitely.
Thank you.